Hi everyone. Well, I'm here to do my review, or should I say, first real reaction and impressions of the new Paul McCartney album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane. I've played the new CD 4 times in its entirety. I listened to all the songs at least 4 times. Of course, the two first singles, if you want to call them, that dropped, which were The Days We Left Behind and Home to Us. I've heard those way more than just 2 times. So I have a good familiarity with these tracks already, and I think enough that I've formed a really good opinion right now of what I would say about the album. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the production. It was produced by Andrew Watt. And I found out going into this that Andrew Watt actually co wrote some of the songs along with Paul. And as far as the production, I'll talk about what it sounds like at the end. I think what I'm going to do is go right into the songs themselves. You can hear that first if you're interested. And then after that, I will talk about other little details. Stick around where I discuss, where does this stand in the pantheon of McCartney albums, and what do I think of Paul's voice and all that kind of stuff, okay? We'll talk about that at the end. So anyway, produced by Andrew Watt, and I really loved what Andrew Watt did with the Rolling Stones album Hackney Diamonds. I thought that was one of the best Rolling Stones albums, period. There, I've said it. Okay, the first track is the song called As You Lie There. And it starts with a spoken intro from Paul. And I got to tell you, I don't like intros or spoken parts. I can't stand Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las with that talking stuff. I hate that, usually. But I got to tell you, as an opening track, it worked. At first, I was wondering if I was going to cringe at Paul doing the spoken bit. But then all of a sudden, a biting guitar comes in, and that guitar is prominent during the song here and there, and I gotta tell you, it made up for it. So I think it actually was effective. Actually, Paul on this song uses his rock voice, and this may be as rocky as Paul gets with his voice, although later on you'll hear a little more rock from Paul. But this is pretty good for a start. It's about Paul's memories of a one-time childhood crush for a girl named Jasmine that he had. Paul's talked about all these songs, so we can get a lot of information from here, having heard Paul's discussions and descriptions of what the songs were. This song has lines in it like, do I ever cross your mind as you lie there? As you lie across the bed, am I there inside your head? I would think that if she was with somebody who became Paul McCartney, the celebrity, probably from time to time thinks about Paul. But I got to say that this is the longest track on the album, 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Most of the songs here are pretty short, considering these days. And I have to say, I think this is a good opening introduction. It's really a powerful opener. So I enjoyed that. Second track really took me by surprise, as I really wound up liking it. It's called Lost Horizon. Love it now after all these listens. One of my favorites instantly as soon as I heard it. I love the melody, particularly the way Paul's singing the title words, Lost Horizon. I love the bridge. It's about nostalgia, living for the now, but also making every moment count. So you kind of like thinking of the past, but also it matters about what you're doing today and right at the moment. It's very pleasant and a mid-tempo track. So I enjoyed that. The third one is the first song that we heard, The Days We Left Behind. Now, it's perfect as track number 3 on this album. Sequencing sometimes can really benefit a song. And I already like The Days We Left Behind. But, I remember when I first talked about it, I said, I'm not ready to call it a Paul McCartney classic or destined to become a classic. But having heard Paul sing it on Saturday Night Live and having heard the song so many times, and now really in all its glory on a CD instead of listening to it, on a phone or on a computer screen, I really like The Days We Left Behind. I did a separate video on it. It's gorgeous, it's sentimental, it's emotional. I'm considering this in the running for a future Paul McCartney classic at this point. Days We Left Behind, I still think may be the best song on the album, but let's see what the future holds for me with that opinion. Okay, track number 4 is called Ripples in a Pond. and it's for his wife Nancy, and it's more of a standard Paul McCartney love song, but it's got a likable, upbeat pace, and words like "I love you more than I ever did before." Let's carry on making ripples in a pond. I don't really, I don't really think the lyrics on this album are particularly strong, to be honest with you. At least not in the, the literary sense. I mean, they're strong emotionally, and in a touching way. But I wouldn't go writing home about the words. And this is the first track, track number 4, that I just mentioned, that's not about nostalgia. The first 3 were kind of looking back and so forth, more or less. The 5th track is called Mountaintop. It's a good track. It's a track that mentions things like magic mushrooms, and it's kind of psychedelic. Would you call this the Sgt. Pepper track of the album? Sort of like English Tea, in a way, I thought. It's got spacey sounding harpsichord, tape loops, very McCartney-esque, both in the music and the words. And later on, it surprisingly speeds up into a chaotic and frantic cosmic zone. So, Mountaintop, a good track. I also like the number 6, which is Down South. Now, Down South has a very much early days sound. If you know the track Early Days from the album New from 2013, where Paul really let his voice go completely bare, pretty much, and untouched. It's a short and simple song. Sounds like Early Days. Paul's voice is kind of frail in it, and that's a good thing, as Paul talks about George Harrison, I think, and talking about things they did, like they hitchhiked together and the times they rode a bus together. And there's references to the Beatles in here with "Oh Yeahs." Usually I wouldn't like going the cheap route by harkening back to "Oh yeah, let's use oh yeah." It fits the song, it fits the topic, so it's fine. And the use of the song title "Twist and Shout" is also in this, as well as Paul reminisces about the early days of guitars and rock and roll and his friend. So the next track, number 7, is called "We Too," TWO, "We Too." And it's funny because at first I did not like this track, and I was all prepared when I did my review to say this was the least track on the album for me. I don't know what I was thinking, because I said I played this several times now, and that we all know that can benefit sometimes, right? And I actually like it now. I soon wound up liking it after that. A nice vocal harmony. I heard that there was old studio equipment from Abbey Road that was featured on this track, and like the Studer 4-track tape machine, and there's certain old instruments implied throughout. And I've come to like We Too quite a bit. Next track, number 8, is called "Come Inside." And in this track, Paul gets vocally, again, raucous and rockin'. And this is maybe the most rocking track, in my opinion, "Come Inside." Now, something weird for me happened with this track. To me, as I started listening to it, I'm a big fan of the album New. So as I'm listening to this, I'm picking up vibes of songs like "I Can Bet" from New. And then, when they get to the bridge of this song, I start hearing what sounds like a similar pacing and inflection and sound of the song "Everybody Out There" from the New album. And that song "Everybody Out There" has the line, "There but for the grace of God go you and I." That sounds like, to me, the bridge in this song "Come Inside," the same tune. I wonder if anybody else thinks that. So I got vibes from New with that particular track. Let me flip the pages here. Okay, next track, number 9, is called "Never Know." This is another one that took a couple of listens before it really grabbed me. It's fun and moderately paced, maybe some more psychedelic bits strewn about. I enjoy the wind instrument sounds that are in this. And the lyrics are about love again. Paul's always going to be about love to some point. And Paul said there are nods to the Beatles and the Beach Boys in here. But I came to enjoy "Never Know." Okay. Track number 10 was the second song that dropped. It's called "Home to Us," and that's the Paul and Ringo Starr duet. It is so much better on CD. I mean, I always liked the song, but I was saying again, I said people are going overboard with this. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. Wow, what a difference a compact disc makes, you know? I mean, I liked it, but now I really love it. I gotta say, it's a lot of fun. I talked about it in a separate video. It's got Paul and Ringo reminiscing about the town where they grew up, in Liverpool, after the bombs had dropped, and even though things were a little rough, even though they didn't have a lot of money, they didn't have much, they didn't have much, but it still was home to them. And even though they said, the roses were wilting and then turned to dust, and even though they had some issues, like in Ringo's case, even mom would burn the toast and all this stuff, it still was home to them. So the sentiment is really, really, really powerful, and I love that they're having fun. Two buddies singing, and it's so fulfilling, for a Beatles fan to hear two or more of the Beatles happily joining up, and we're so fortunate to get this. The only real official duet between Paul and Ringo. People say, oh, well, Ringo sang with Paul on Beautiful Night, and they say that Paul sang with Ringo on Ringo's song from his, what was it called? Walk With You, from the album Why Not? But, that was really Paul doing like harmony assistance. It wasn't each one taking a line, and each one singing a line. So this is really the first official duet. Now, the next track, number 11. At this point, I'm going to call this, in my opinion, my least favorite song on the album. I don't know. Let me know what you think when you hear it. Life Can Be Hard. It's it's another version. An early version was originally heard on the documentary McCartney 321, and Paul's voice here is higher and not as smooth as most songs here. We're gonna talk about the voice later. Okay, his voice is generally quite good on the album. Whatever the reasons, if it was manipulated, I'm sure it was. But on this one, it's kind of high in register, and it doesn't sound as good. This song was written during the lockdown of COVID-19, and it's about relying on family, finding solace in your loved ones, and focusing on the good when chaos seems to loom all around you. And Paul has said, everyone has their problems. Paul was saying, even though we might think, well, what kind of problems could a Paul McCartney have with all his money? Well, there are health problems, family problems. Loved ones leave us. Everyone has problems, but Paul is eternally, and sometimes I admire his optimism, the eternal optimist. And I can't always be like that. I wish I could. Okay, track number 12 is First Star of the Night. Took me a couple of listens to get into that one, but now I find it, after several listens, a soft and comforting tune. It's kind of comforting. It's an acoustic track written in Costa Rica while Paul was touring, and he was trapped inside during a very heavy rainstorm. And it's a soothing song, as it turns out, I think, and about finding peace amidst upset. Kind of like the last one, you can still find peace and be grounded even though things around you are chaotic. All right. Now the next track, number 13, Salesman Saint. Salesman Saint is a song that I wanted to like this one more. Right now it's one of my least favorites, but you have to love Paul's meaning behind it, his intention behind it, right? It's a song about the salesman being his father, and the saint being his mom. Paul's father was a cotton salesman, and his mother was a wartime nurse and midwife, and she's the saint. This song's about memories of working really hard, the parents and trying to pay the rent during and after the war time. The music, oddly, starts to veer into a 1940s big band sound and what I consider an awkward arrangement transition. But for some reason, it's classy in a way. It's clever in a way too. A little strange in a way, but it fits because they're talking about that era. The 1940s. Yeah, hopefully in future listens I'll appreciate this more. I appreciate the sentiment. Don't really love it so much as a piece of music. Okay? Finally, the last track on the album is a great closer. It's like a piano ballad called Mama Gets By that starts with a piano but swells into a beautiful orchestration and gets more and more layers as we go on. Some of the lyrics: Mama gets by while Papa gets high. Now, I want to say first that Paul McCartney made it official that this was a fictional story. This was not about his parents or anything. It's a fictional one about mom trying to hold down the fort while the dad is what Paul calls, quote, a bit of a wastrel, a wastrel who struggles to hold things together. It's a perfect and somber closing to what is a very personal and emotional album. Okay, and those are my thoughts on the songs after the first few listens and getting to know them somewhat better. Okay, now I got some thoughts pertaining to the album. First of all, we talked about Andrew Watts a little bit as the producer. I would say his production here is perfect. As I say, I loved him on the Rolling Stones' Hackney Diamonds. I think he's perfect here. It's not too overdone, it's just enough, and it doesn't make the album sound too modern and not really Paul McCartney. It's perfect for Paul, I think. Now the question also, next question, is this a concept album? Well, I think the answer is everybody has an opinion, right? It's not totally a concept album, just like Sgt. Pepper was not a total concept album. But it's quite a bit. Paul looks back on his past quite a bit, and it's about his childhood quite a bit. But not every song is concept related. So that's what I would say about that. I would say this album is very close to Chaos and Creation in the Backyard from 2005. In the sense that it's Paul kind of bearing his soul a lot, kind of being honest, uh, being more vulnerable. And that was what I liked about Chaos so much. But also, it's got some pop stuff in it. It feels like it's Chaos, but with some the album new, and maybe Egypt Station thrown in. So you got a little of that too, which kind of elevates it from Chaos and Creation being just so down or so, I don't know what you want to call, serious all the time. So I think it's more fun, this album, than Chaos and Creation. As I said before, the lyrics are very personal, very touching, but they're not the greatest lyrics, in my opinion. But, no big deal. That's fine. Let's see now. Paul McCartney plays most of the instruments himself here. As I said earlier, I was surprised Andrew Watt, I'm sorry. Did I say Andrew Watts or Andrew Watt? I'm sorry if I put the S on before. I don't know. Andrew Watt. Anyway, Andrew Watt actually co-wrote some of the songs. That was a surprise to me. All right, now let's talk about Paul's voice, okay? I don't think people should have any problem enjoying Paul's singing on this album. Because I've always said, even if he's rough in concert sometimes, in the studio he can do a lot. They can do a lot, whoever. So whether it's studio trickery or whether it's just kind of like using a little bit of auto-tune or whether it's AI, some of it, the sound of it, I don't know, but I will say for a man who's 83, he sounds pretty good on this record, and I have no problem with it. There were a couple of incidents, as I said, where the songs like Down South, which is more rough, but that's intentional and that works for that song, just like Early Days being rough worked, And the song Life Can Be Hard, I didn't really care for his voice on that too, but you know what? Doesn't really hurt anything, really. So, anybody who watches me knows I'm fair. If I say he doesn't sound great, I'd say it. And I think a lot of people were concerned, what is Paul going to sound like on this? He sounds damn good, okay, for his age. Let's see now. Is this the best album since Chaos and Creation in the Backyard? A lot of people are saying this is the best Paul album since 2005's Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, the best album of the last 21 years. It might be better than Chaos. I think, Chaos and Creation has songs that are better than some of the songs here, and here we have songs that are better than some of the ones on Chaos. But I think Chaos is a little too serious, a little too dour in places, where this one has a little bit more joy at times, a little more upbeat. Even Home to Us Alone, even Home to Us Alone, is much more fun. All right. So I don't know. I'd say, I admire also 2007's Memory Almost Full, and I love 2013's New. So I might say this is the best album since New. You know. Okay. I don't know. What do you think? This album is more of a wholesome, introspective, personal, down to earth album with some pop moments. Could there have been a little bit more pop on here? Maybe. A little bit more? Perhaps. But still, it's a pretty damn good album. Okay, now, I don't know what else I can say about it. I think it's a good album. This is a good album. Is it Paul's best album? No, but I've only heard it a few times, right? I haven't heard it. Check with me in 5 or 10 years, and we'll see if I think it's one of his best at that point. But of course, things can change, but things can, sometimes you stick with it from the beginning. Like I remember listening to Ringo's Look Up album, and I considered it one of his best when I first heard it, and I still do after one listen. So I'd like to know what everybody thinks of this album. I've given you my thoughts. Very good start. I'm not prepared to call this his best album of all time. I'm not prepared to call this the best album he's done since Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. It's up there, definitely up there. It is a good Paul McCartney record.